Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Julie Mann, and I show men and women how they can lead healthy, happy, sustainable lives. And I'm really delighted because today I'm talking to Kirsteen Williamson-Guinn. That's so hard to say, Kirsteen.
Just Kirsteen will be fine.
Really great to see you. For those of you out there that don't actually know who Kirsteen is yet, she works as a speaker, a transformational facilitator, and she's also MD of the Polkadot Powerhouse. So I'm looking forward to hearing about all of that. But I think a great place to start, Kirsteen, would be really to talk about your life up till now. You know, tell us a bit about your childhood. Let's start with that, and some of the influences you had when you were a young girl.
Okay, well, I was born in Germany. My dad was in the military. So we lived in Germany for about a year of my life, much longer for them. And then we moved back to my dad's birth country of Scotland. So I grew up in the Highlands of Scotland, which was very beautiful, but cold and often wet. And I remember as a kid it snowing in June, which was like really bizarre. So, but yeah, I grew up with my mum and dad, had a normal childhood. And then when I was 10, we moved to England. And that was quite an upheaval for me because things were very, very different. I remember landing at Birmingham Airport. That was the first piece of England I'd ever seen. And there was graffiti everywhere, and I'd never seen graffiti. And there were people of all different ethnicities, shapes, sizes, different fashion. And I was just like, wow, it sounds like I grew up in a cave, but I didn't see all that in my, very young years. It just wasn't around. So it was quite scary. But we came to England because of my dad's career. My dad was very career minded, and then he set up his own business. And I guess my dad was quite a big influence on me and my work ethic, and the fact that I saw myself as a very ambitious, career focused woman or girl growing into a woman. And then other influences on me as I grew up were Tony Robbins was a big one. We went to one of his immersion events, Unleash the Power, for the weekend because my husband wanted to quit his job at the time and knew that he needed something that would push him. And I'd never heard of Tony Robbins or experienced any of his work. But for me, that was a bit of a pivotal moment in the fact that I became so passionate about my own personal growth outside of my career as well.
Amazing. So you mentioned that your dad was a big influence on you when it came to a work ethic. Was he actually involved in the finance industry? Because that's your background, isn't it? Did you learn from him though about the importance of managing your finances?
Oh, definitely not. Not because so my mum and dad, we always had enough. My dad was very generous and my mum is very frugal. My dad's not with us anymore and my mum has dementia and it's a whole different story. But growing up, we always had enough. I always was able to get what I needed. We always had good food. I was always able to go on things. So probably the mindset around money was there's just enough. And sometimes it's hard. But no, my dad wasn't in finance. I fell into finance because I knew at 16 that I wanted to leave school and become independent. At 14, I decided I was an adult and could take my own advice, no longer needed anyone else's. And so I left school at 16 despite everybody else's wishes. And I applied to 2 jobs that were local. One was my local bank and the other was a solicitors who were looking for a bilingual secretary. And because I'd studied French and Spanish at O-level, I thought, well, that sounds fine. So anyway, the bank came back to me. I had an interview with a lovely man. As you can imagine, a bank manager in those days was a middle-aged man in a pinstripe suit. And we talked about goats, bizarrely. And I love goats, and he loved goats. And I got the job, possibly because of my love of goats. And the rest was history. 32 years later, I left.
Oh my goodness, what a brilliant story. Do you think that shock of arriving in Birmingham, you know, after living in Scotland, actually was character building?
Oh, definitely, because it opens you up to, this is how you see the world, but there's more. There's things you've never seen or witnessed before, and you've just got to be open to them. So I definitely think so. I was very sad. Sorry, that's my dog. I was very sad for quite a while about leaving, like, the safety and familiarity of Scotland to this place where there's graffiti and strange people everywhere.
Yes, absolutely. So you talked about the challenge of that, moving countries. What other kind of challenges did you have to face personally?
As an adult, or
any of your experiences, really?
So probably the most recent is with my mum and dad's health. I think that was another quite pivotal stage in my life, because you go through life with everything being seemingly normal and you're in control. And I'm a recovering control freak. So being in control for me was just, that's how I need to be. And then suddenly my dad was terminally ill and my mum had dementia, and that just threw everything into question. And for the first time in my career, I really lost my confidence. I became anxious. I felt totally out of control. And just because there was nothing I could do, I couldn't change any of it. And as a leader in my whole career who's been able to influence and make things happen and make things okay, suddenly I couldn't do any of those things. And it was a real bump for me. And I'd never had anxiety. I've led massive teams with people that have had anxiety, but I think until you've experienced it, you don't really understand how that impacts life. So, but because at that point, I'd already started making decisions about, I was going to leave my corporate career and start doing something different. I'd started my health coaching training. And one of the things that I'd learned that was going on was that I'd become totally disconnected from myself, which sounds really odd, but I wasn't aware of what was going on for me. I was very busy being what everyone wanted me to be, being on form and thinking about everybody and everything else, that I had become totally disconnected from who I was and what I was feeling and what I needed. And so that's what my coaching helped me connect again with myself and figure out how to get through all of that. And now that's what I do for women too.
You help them to return to work, don't you?
Well, I help them. I mean, I set my business up called Return to Work because when I was thinking about the most stressful time in people's careers, it's when they return, whether it's after having a baby or because they've taken a break to look after someone, or because they've lost someone and they return. All these times are very stressful in people's lives. But as my business has evolved, I work with women who struggle with confidence for whatever reason. And that could be that they've just been promoted and they've got a massive dose of imposter syndrome and think they're never going to be the person that the hiring manager thought they were. Or it could be that they've just been made redundant or that's looming, and they're not open to the possibilities that brings. They need support. So that's what I do, and I love it.
Yeah, I can see that. And having been someone who used to, actually when I was pregnant with my daughter, I suffered with anxiety. I absolutely know how debilitating that can be, and how I remember at the time thinking it would never change, and I was the only one with it, and that was just that was my life. But I went to see a hypnotherapist, so I absolutely know what it's like to experience that. So you say that you help women with imposter syndrome, people who are lacking in confidence, people who may be taking a higher paid position, or they're going back to work for whatever reason. How exactly, nuts and bolts, do you help people, Kirsteen?
So I'm a certified transformational health and life coach. I'm also studying feminine power with Claire Zammit, which is all about leveraging our feminine qualities. And this is really important to me because my whole career was based in masculine qualities. And it was, my life was steeped in masculine qualities. So what I do is I work with women normally on a 12-week program where we have a coaching session every week, and we go through a program that builds unshakable confidence. So we work on, first of all, self-care, because that is the foundation of everything, and there is a huge correlation between self-care and self-confidence. And when you're worrying about everyone else, you put yourself last. Guess what? Your self-care goes, your confidence goes. So that's where we start. Then we look at aligning with who you want to become. And we put things in place so that you align with that version of you and let go of the old stuff. We learn how to relax, something that I didn't know how to do for many, many moons. And a lot of the women that come to me also don't know how to do. So we put that in. I look at beliefs, because, we carry these beliefs around with us for years. They're formed very early on, and they're the filter through which we see things and make decisions. And some of our beliefs are really unhelpful. So we uncover those, disrupt those, and then we learn how to unlock our power and really step into who we are here to be. Because as women, we have aspirations and ambitions in life, but quite often it can be the most difficult thing for us to articulate and for us to be able to actually see as a possibility. So that's another area that we focus on.
Wow, sounds amazing, absolutely amazing. So if there's a woman watching right now, Kirsteen, and she's really lost her confidence, maybe feeling that imposter syndrome, maybe just feeling a bit nervous about going back into the workplace, or maybe taking, that more senior position. Have you got any tips or advice that you can pass on?
Yeah, well, I would say start with how you are taking care of yourself and notice how you are talking to yourself. Because what our thoughts create how we feel. So, and quite often we are chatting away to ourselves and accepting really poor quality conversation. I'm very aware of my own self-talk now, because I've done the work for many years. It still has moments of very brash, brutal abruptness. But what we tend to do is, when we talk to someone else, we are far more considered in how we approach things. We are more compassionate, we are kind, we are forgiving. When it comes to talking to ourselves, we are brutal. We are not our own biggest cheerleader. We tell ourselves we can't do it or we've done it wrong again. So I would say always start with self-care. Do the things that make you feel good and catch yourself when your self-talk is destructive or unhelpful, and turn it into become your own best friend.
That is brilliant.
Start talking to yourself like you would someone that you actually care about.
Yeah, fantastic. Because actually, of all the cheerleaders we could possibly have, we need to be the biggest one, don't we?
Yeah, but quite often we're the most self-critical.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure everyone can relate to that to some degree. So obviously you've talked about the incredible work that you do, and I can see why someone would jump at the chance of working with you. But I want to hear it from you, Kirsteen. Why do you think someone should work with you? You know, what do you think makes you unique?
Well, we are all unique in our own special way. I think what I bring, and predominantly I work with people in financial services or leaders, but what I bring to the table is my extensive coaching, training and certifications, my corporate career background. So I was a director for 20 years running very large teams. So I know how to run businesses, I know how to lead people. I've got all of that experience in me. And I think probably more important than that, I've got my life experience. I've gone through lots of change. I've gone through bumps. I've left the security of a corporate role to follow my dreams and ambitions. I've been successful in corporate, and I've made loads of mistakes that I will happily share so that others don't need to. So I think that's what I bring. I suppose that's my essence.
Brilliant. So your hindsight can be their foresight. Absolutely, love it.
Yeah.
So I know that you started the Polkadot chapter. Yeah. Yay! I know you love that. So what prompted you to do that, and what do you think makes Polkadot any different from any other networking community?
Okay. So what prompted me was when I left my corporate role, I was surrounded by people. I had people that did so many things for me, and people that I could lean on, bounce ideas off, all of that. Suddenly, when you become self-employed, it can feel very lonely. And I knew straight away that I needed to find a network where I felt at home and where I felt I could draw on support of other women or other people. And I went to lots of different networking groups, but I didn't really feel that connection. Then my coach at the time, who's American, said, look, go to this. They do an international Zoom. So it's 2 hours of your life. What have you got to lose? Are you prepared to give 2 hours up and see what comes from it? So I thought, well, why not? So I did, and I absolutely loved it. And I felt so at home, even though this was an international meeting and I didn't know a soul. I didn't understand what was going on. I felt so at home. So I went to another meeting and had the same experience. So I wrote to whoever at Polkadot, couldn't even tell you who, and said, I want to bring it to the UK because we don't have anything like this. And the reason I say we don't have anything like this is, one, we're all about building relationships. Two, there is no industry lockouts. Some of the groups I've been to as a coach, there are thousands of coaches. Every corner there's a coach, but we all do different things. And quite often networking groups don't really understand that. And so in one of my previous memberships, I was locked out because there was another coach, even though we did totally different things. So Polkadot is about abundance. It's about inclusivity. We have women who don't run businesses. We have women who want to step away from corporate and start their own businesses. And we have a vast array of brilliant female entrepreneurs. So there is there is something for everyone. The only stipulation is that you need to be a positive person, and we don't want any drama.
Perfect. Prerequisites. So obviously I'm going to put all your links below this video, Kirsteen. Yeah. So everybody just please go and check Kirsteen out. She's a wealth of information.
Oh, thank you.
So what is it that you do when you're not working, apart from Anthony Robbins and possibly walking the dog?
You got me. So I've got a dog and 2 cats, and a husband, not necessarily that order. I love spending time. Terrible. Don't let him see this. I love spending time with my family. So I love walking. I love reading. I love watching good and bad films. I love a bit of trash, I have to say. And I am terribly addicted to Married at First Sight. I wish I wasn't. And it's on every night at 9 o'clock, which is a real killer. So my brain needs nourishment, but it also needs like a portion of dirty chips sometimes.
I love your honesty. I absolutely love it, and your guilty secret. Thank you for sharing that with us. One final question, Kirsteen. When you're no longer on this planet, how would you like to be remembered?
Well, the thing that I haven't told you is about my absolute love for animals and my desire to make things better for them. So I've got kind of 2 missions. One is about helping women step into leadership, whatever that is, leadership in their life, leadership in their role, leadership in their business. I want to be remembered as believing in people so they believed in themselves. And I also want to be remembered for, in some way, creating change for the better for animals.
Wonderful. It's been a real joy talking to you, Kirsteen. So all there is for me to say
you too.
Kirsteen Williamson-Guinn, thank you ever so much.
Oh, thank you. I loved it. Thank you very much.